Let's record. Okay, let's talk about proactive maintenance. Last topic. Woohoo! So very detailed sort of diagram there. I'm not going to go through all those. That's not like sort of stuff that you have to memorize or anything. The only thing that you should get from looking at that workflow model. Now, by the way, that's a workflow model as opposed to a flow chart. We have sort of come up against that differentiation. We notice things sort of going in circles there, but we don't have any decisions that are sort of shown in the diagram. But what you notice in there is there is a lot of different components that make up a possible proactive workflow model. Proactive workflow, then what I want you to take away from that image is that there are a lot of things that we can do, but they need to be very carefully planned, scheduled, detailed procedures, right? Put in place so that the systems that we have maintain at their highest level without coming across as incidents. So at the start of the course, when we started talking about service management, um, IT service management, we started talking about incidents. The idea, and we talked about, so how do we manage incidents? Then we talked about how do we manage problems, identifying the root cause, and then sort of managing through those. Then we had our change management, our configuration management, and here we're talking and here we're talking about, well, what could we do to actually reduce those incidents? And really, this is just about sort of, I guess you could sort of say like hygiene, our network hygiene, our systems hygiene, keeping things at their best possible sort of state of health. Yes, welcome, Hamza. I'll mark you present when I get back to the market. So that's the idea here. And think about things that we do in other spheres to keep things healthy. Perhaps you have a car. Perhaps you have animals. That would be pretty obvious to you, how you have to sort of keep in a very sort of regular routine if you have animals to keep them healthy. But yeah, other more simple things like a car or some other mechanized it's something that you use which is important to you. You need to regularly uh, do certain maintenance to stop having problems down the line. So, for example, when you change the oil in your car, you're not changing the oil in your car because you noticed something wrong with your car. Your car is just driving along. It's okay. What happened is you looked at the side there, or with modern cars, you might get a little message come up which says, it's time to change the oil. But with the older cars, we'd have a look as we come into the car door and see the mileage there and look at the mileage on the things. Oh, it's time to change the oil. Um, because our maintenance is done before we actually see that we have an issue. We're not having an incident, and so before the incident, we're doing some interventions. This is what we mean by proactive. So proactive maintenance would be things like in your car changing your oil. So what would they be on our network or on our systems? And this diagram basically is trying to explain that what I in my in a lot more words tried to explain a minute ago, which if you look at the lines here, we've got two different things here that are sort of important. Well, three, right? So if we just do breakdown maintenance, that's the top line. So imagine that we're okay. Let's take the car example, and you just go along, and when something breaks, we fix it, and that's all we do. Well, you could drive that car for a while, and you wouldn't be spending very much money, right? And then all of a sudden, you'd start spending a lot of money, right? I mean, eventually, the uh, the vehicle, if you're not changing the oil and the air filter the oil filter and numerous other things you're checking on, you will have a case where the vehicle just stopped working, and you're going to be up for like new motor, and that's big money. Now, the other two lines, uh, predictive maintenance, we could do some kind of analysis, based on the fact that, well, I had a car before, and at 100,000 kilometers, I got a breakdown. So, you know what? At 80,000 kilometers, I'm going to do all this service. And that would be sort of predictive. And we spend a bit of money on it, and we might be able to reduce those costs. Proactive maintenance would be basically, okay, so based on a more fine analysis, I think that at regular intervals, I'm going to be checking to see if there's any indicators of things that might be out of control. But also, I will be just every 5,000 kilometers, I'm going to change the oil, whether it needs it or not, because it does need it, right? Whether it needs it or not, I'm just going to do it. Now, it could be the same for our computer systems, and we will talk about those in the next couple of slides. We don't have a lot of slides, so you should be able to hold these all these thoughts in your mind as we go. So there's some things that we can use to help us to do this. So we got a network, and we don't have a physical contact with all the nodes in the network. If we're in the IT service desk, so what can we do if we want to do this efficiently? We could do some kind of remote administration tools, have tools which are able to take control of different nodes in the network. We certainly have that here at the college, and I think I mentioned that to you when we were talking about the service desk. So for example, people downstairs are able to take control of my desktop and any other desktop in the college with the permission of the person who logs, well, unless you log out and they log in with their admin credentials. So performing routine maintenance in the computer system. So perhaps every evening or every Thursday night or Friday morning, like midnight, there's certain maintenance routines that they go through. Checking on various nodes, their connections, all kinds of sort of updates that they could be doing there. There could be some kind of reporting back by monitoring from the different nodes and routers and switches throughout the system that come into a report, and then based on that report, we could be doing some extra updates. But the thing is, we can analyze that report just to make sure that everything's in in um, in control. So we have this concept of scheduled and poll-driven updates, and you would have seen this, I'm pretty sure, if you're running Microsoft systems, right? So you know that there are hackers that are always trying to find exploits in whatever software are around, and the developers of those software, if they're a professional organization, will be putting together patches to remove those vulnerabilities that hackers are using to exploit systems. And so as if there is a sort of an emergency sort of situation come out, they will actually push out a patch as soon as they have it, and that may come at an irregular time. So if you're using a computer that is running Microsoft um, their operating system, what you'll find is that you'll have this message come up that if you turn off your computer, it's going to update, and please let it update and don't turn off the power and all that kind of stuff. So they're pushing out an update for you, and that's done as a poll. And you should always accept those, of course, right? Because typically that's what it is. It's not always, you might say, oh yeah, they're doing an update, they're giving me some unwanted feature that I don't want. And maybe, but they're also probably patching a vulnerability because somebody has found the vulnerability, and if you don't do the patch, you will be vulnerable to an exploit. So that would be a poll-driven update, or you could have just updates that are scheduled on a sort of a monthly or yearly basis, and that's the type of thing that you could be doing in your systems as well. So there's a lot of things that you could be aware of as part of that sort of systems. We see here an image, and it's just an image from a Dell, what is it called here? Open Managed Server Administrator. So a server administrator type of job that many of you might be aspiring to because you're working as networking students. So this software is able to do various tests and give information back to the through this diagnostics, give information back to the person like you in the service desk, so that updates could be made. All right, so yeah, there's a little bit there about RAID as well. I mentioned at the start of this lesson about hygiene. I use that word. Basically, where we have things that are fairly volatile. I mean, like in a RAID system, you know, your RAID is going to have a lot of redundancy in it with your, so it's a redundant array of hard drives, basically. So there's going to be a lot of redundancy in that, and the connections with different data being put on all the time, that can get to a point where there might be some sort of randomness encroaching in, and so that needs to be sort of refreshed, and yeah, hygiene needs to be sort of cleaned up from time to time. A little bit more of that particular system that Dell is using for their servers. You can see that it's quite common for these type of systems that are giving your IT service management people and help with what they're doing. So you're going to have sort of graphical um, reports that they're getting, so that they'll get used to what to expect with those reports, and perhaps the colors like red for critical is showing certain things that need to be sort of attended to immediately, and then they can sort of drill down into those and see where attention needs to be made. And so you got a little red dot on there saying that there's 3 things that need to be sort of looked at pretty quickly. And there they are there, etc. A little bit more with that same bit of software. Here's giving a software summary. So this particular software is doing diagnostics on a lot of things, and it's checking the health of the Microsoft Hypervisor server, and yeah, and some more diagrams. So last couple of slides. This may be the last slide. Maybe there's one more after this. But the point that you probably be aware that lots of things are happening in the IT industry that are moving out onto the cloud, and there's a lot of arguments for moving into the cloud. So we have all kinds of services that are available. This as a service, that as a service, whatever. So it shouldn't surprise you, I hope, that maybe we could do our IT service management as a service, or in other words, we could push that service out onto the cloud, or we could even outsource and allow somebody from outside our organization to do that as a third party, you know, a trusted third party to do that as a service, and maybe that might even drive down our costs. So there are organizations that will do that, and you could do a quick Google search and find out a lot about them. And so the main benefit there is, well, you got these people, firstly, that they should be experts at it. And it could be, I mean, but you know, what's to stop you hiring experts? You can get your experts also, cost money. That's the thing. And I suppose the benefit of doing it from outsourcing it is that you can pay as you go. That means that you can do this on a monthly contract, and you know, maybe termination would be a little bit easier than if you had to sort of build up that capability in your own organization. And they will have tools that allow them to do remote work on your systems, and including all of these things here, including your IT asset management and mobile device management. Benefits of proactive management. So this is basically a summary slide. Why do we do things proactively maintaining our networks and our systems? And I hope that the analogy that I gave you with like a car, you know, the services that we do with the car, I hope that that sort of stays in your mind as how these things could help us, but also for in the computer system. So what we hope to gain from it is less downtime, or as we've called it throughout this course, less incidents, right? Less incidents, less loss of availability, reduce vulnerability to attacks. So, and therefore, and this is related to it, reduced data loss. Patches are part of proactive management. So patches are providing what I refer to as hygiene for our servers and our nodes and against exploits and bugs. And so very short lesson, but hopefully there's something in there for you. Yeah, so just on this, what's due today, the the presentation or video. Yeah, you should include in there something about configuration items. You should include something about the configuration management database. So you might need to sort of look up on that. And then you should include something about how configuration management is related to change management and to problem management. And all of those things, we did talk about them, but there are also things that are easily available sort of online. I know you do a lot of your research online. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but that's what you should be looking at doing to finish.